Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to What's to Come in Assistive Technology, brought to you by Clayton Guffey of AzTAP. My name is John McDermott, and I work for the Institute for Human Development in Flagstaff, Arizona. We're happy to collaborate with AzTAP to deliver this webinar via our Adobe Connect web conferencing platform. So I'd like to share a couple of housekeeping tidbits prior to Clayton starting. This is a listen-only webinar. If you have any questions or comments, please utilize the chat pod in the lower right of the screen. We will also be recording this webinar and archiving it to our YouTube channel. And as you will see, there are real-time captions brought to you by AzTAP. So I'm going to hand it over to Clayton.
Thank you very much, John. I appreciate it. Welcome, everybody. I really appreciate you taking the time out to participate in our webinar today. My name is Clayton, and I'm an Assistive Technology Specialist with the Arizona Technology Access Program, and we're located in Phoenix. We're the state's Assistive Technology Resource Program, for those of you that may not be 100% familiar with us. At the end of my presentation, there'll be a slide with my email address and our website if you'd like to click on that to get more information about us. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right into our presentation. I want to set the stage for what I'm going to be covering today. Potentially a pretty broad topic, what's to come. Kind of difficult to say in some capacity. What I'm going to try to do today is to break it down on these following parameters. What's to be expected to be included in AT 5 years ago? So 5 years ago, what were the features that were recommended be included in assistive technology? I kind of want to review then progress. Where have we come? Where have we met? Where have we not met? What was expected to be 5 years ago? A lot of that will be beyond the scope of a presentation today, but I just want to touch on it just a little bit. Also, I want to take a look at devices that have come out recently or have become exposed recently in the past year or so. Some of these things have been in the works for a while. They may have been out, not had a lot of exposure, and they're just now starting to take off because more people are becoming aware of them. I really wanted to focus on things that are available and tangible, as opposed to devices that maybe will be found in the future. I want us to be able to work with reality to some degree. So I'm going to be talking a lot about some newer assistive technology that's just out. Of course, all of us that work in the field know that assistive technology is all about the features, what the device does, what it can do, and even what it can't do. So we're going to be taking a look at a lot of the features of these devices, particularly as it comes to what's going to be available in the future, because again, it's all about the features. And what does the future likely hold for assistive technology? Again, devices and features. What will we see more of most likely? And of course, this is anybody's best guess, but I think sometimes the best predictor of the future is the past. We can kind of see what the focus has been on and what's coming out, and that will help us prognosticate what is going to be out in the future, what we need to prepare for in regards to working with our clients. I'm going to talk a little bit about research and design that's underway for some new AT options, some things that are possibly coming to market or that are going to be refined for the market in the future. And finally, I'm going to end with some barriers and challenges that we will need to continue to face in regards to assistive technology. So hopefully it'll set the stage a little bit for our presentation today. I'd like to start in regards to what was expected to be included in assistive technology. And this is something that came out for the National Center for Technology Innovation. I actually read this article when it first came out in 2009, and it identified key trends that they were hoping, based on all their research and experts that they pulled together, would be included in assistive technology in the coming future. And I'd like to go over these, and we're going to take a look at the devices that I'm talking about today, and I want you to kind of keep these things in mind as you're reviewing these devices and see, where have we met them, where have we not met them in regards to these platforms or these considerations for assistive technology. The title of the publication, in case you want to look it up, and I do have a link to it in my references at the end of my presentation, is called Unleashing the Power of Innovation for Assistive Technology. And these are the trends that they identified. Convergence. We've already seen a lot of this happening, and I'll touch on it today, but it is essentially the consolidation of various technology systems into a single platform. And I like to use the example of the iPhone and an OCR app like the KNFB reader. They're converging the phone along with an OCR device. So you're not having to carry multiple devices with you to accomplish what you need to throughout your day. You're getting everything in a more condensed platform. And there's a lot of advantages which are kind of common sense. You don't have to carry a lot of stuff. You don't have to learn to use a lot of stuff. And most of all, you don't have to buy a lot of stuff. You don't have $500 for a phone and $1,000 for a portable OCR device. You can merge these into one. The KNFB reader, the original mobile device, was a really good example of this. They incorporated a regular cell phone along with the app, so they were converging these technologies together. Customizability and universal design for learning is another one. And this is AT that's configured to meet the access needs of a wide variety of individuals, users. Really not only persons with disabilities, but really anybody in the community that may have some special considerations or just may not be good at technology or learning new things, along with persons with disabilities. So things that make sense to a broad range of people. And features of these kinds of devices are customizable colors, voice output, and alternative access options for all. So ability to make a device applicable and accessible and usable to a broad range of folks at once instead of just one unique population. Another one is portability, and we have certainly seen this in the last 5 years, much more becoming portable and being able to go with us into our daily lives. I like to distinguish it from mobile because portable and mobile both have different definitions, but portability is really the ability to go with you outside the home, to be taken to different environments where you may need the technology, from school to work and back home again. So essentially being able to transport to task across device and or situation. And an example of this may be a computer magnification software on a thumb drive. You can take it to home or from home to work or to school and back home again. So you get some portability in that device. And we've certainly seen that in regards to tablet and smartphone technology today. Little is more portable than those kinds of access options. Interoperability. And what this essentially is software that works across things, devices, settings, or platforms. Essentially where two systems can exchange information. At the heart, really technology talking to technology. Software and hardware cooperating with each other, because not everybody uses the same hardware. Software and the assistive technology devices that people use need to be able to cooperate with lots of different hardware. And the hardware needs to be able to access and run this. And we see this a lot with types of digital files, certainly software, apps, hopefully, those types of things. So we need technology that's able to talk to technology and ultimately work together with end users or for end users. And finally, things, and this is big, certainly our parent organization, the Institute for Human Development, really supports development of technology and services based on research and evidence-based design. And this is essentially studies of AT's effectiveness and designed to focus on features, usage, and the population's need versus the individual products. So it's really looking at the people that are using them, and what we're putting out really works for folks. And that's based in some degree on tangible proof, on data that can be tracked and evaluated, that it is having an effect on people's lives or assisting them in completing functional tasks to some degree. So those are the features that in 2009 NCTI determined were important to be included in assistive technology today. And that report was in the fall of 2009, and here we are 5 years later. So I think it's a good time to evaluate how far we've come in that goal. And really at the end of the day, all of those, the underlying themes, technology design imperative was that devices and systems should be simple to learn, to use, to integrate, and to support. And we'd all like that. We certainly all appreciate technology that meets that definition. So where are we now in regards to these? I mean, certainly with the smartphone, we've got mobility and portability. We've certainly got convergence with these genres devices. So a really thorough explanation of this is probably beyond the scope of this program, but I want you to keep those concepts in mind as we move forward. So where has progress been made and where has it been lacking? Personally, I don't think we've made as much progress as we need to in regards to some TV technology for accessing it for persons with a blindness and visual impairment, and to cell phone technology as we may need it to. Those are a couple areas that I see clients really struggling with and not a whole lot of new development in. So we're going to touch on this a little bit today in some of the devices that I have, but that's certainly a couple of areas that it's been lacking. So now I'd like to look at a variety of brand new or relatively new devices that I mentioned earlier to kind of size this all up. And again, keep these trends in mind and kind of evaluate these devices in regards to how they size up on all of those trends. All right, the first one I'd like to start out with is a relatively new release in the last couple of months, I believe, from our friends at Adaptive Switch Labs, which manufactures mainly wheelchair control interfaces for folks with complex physical needs. It's a control interfaces that would attach to, let's say, a power wheelchair. In the past, one of the growing areas of technology has been the ability to control your computer, maybe cell phone, or electronic environment from the controls of your power wheelchair. And in the past, it required usually a fair amount of components, a control box and some wiring and some ways to allow whatever hardware you had to communicate with your power chair, some type of interface. And to some degree, it still does. Newer end power chairs are actually harnessing a whole lot of control capability now for access to smartphones, to your computer, and to your electronic environment. But ASL's newest product, the Atom 104, is an electronic head array that is actually incorporating the Bluetooth or the wireless component into the headset. So it's coming as a complete package. And what I have pictured on the screen is a headset that you might see on a power wheelchair. And essentially, this head array or headset array has the ability to allow the user to control the power chair with the movement of their head. It's switches incorporated that allows the user to move forward, backwards, left, and right with the movement of their head by activating these switches. Now, the user can also switch modes and activate and control their computer, communication device, or their smartphone by these same controls. So instead of having to have a whole other set of access equipment, you can now incorporate this into your power chair and use only one set of access equipment. So there's some advantages from this, from a convergence perspective. So this Bluetooth wireless component built into the head array becomes your switch interface. The user can control this interface by turning it off and on independently. So there's no caregiver support to do this. It's mainly important now from a new development standpoint because it moves it all together. Whereas before you had to have an external control box, now you're getting this capability integrated into the unit. So it comes as a complete package. So it combines all of this technology into an environmental or into one package for environmental control, computer access, AAC device access, all into one package. I've got the website link down there at the end of the presentation. If you'd like more information, you can certainly go to those websites and take a look at it. All right, I'm going to move on now to a newer product that has been out and I don't think has gotten a lot of mainstream attention, and it certainly is a device that meets my needs in regards to clients and their cell phone access needs, which I have lots of clients come to me from the areas of folks with visual impairments and folks with intellectual or cognitive disabilities who need a more accessible phone. Because unfortunately, I don't think phone technology has really come as far as it's needed to for these populations. And I like to say, and this may not be the 100% correct term, but it's a disability slant on a mainstream device. This is a regular phone, functions as a regular phone and a regular smartphone, but it's got a whole unique set of features that allows different access to it. This phone, the Ray N5 and the G1 smartphones by this project are vision-free access phones. You're not needing to really use the display to access them and their features. They allow complete smartphone access, meaning ability to do email, contacts, your location on the one device. So you're getting complete capability for all the smartphone features on one device. It uses a Google Nexus 6 platform, and it operates as a regular Android phone or in its own what's called Ray mode, which is where the Android system is set aside and it operates in its own Ray or Ray mode for access, I guess is lack of the better term, which does not require any vision to use and to access. And its output is, of course, vocal with haptic responses, which is essentially a touch style response. It also offers voice dialing and speech recognition, visual ID, a tag identifier, and remote assistance as needed for guidance on how to use the phone. So at the end of the day, it's a vision-free access phone that I hope will get some more exposure in the future and will become more of a mainstream product or a more available product. And again, the website is down there for more information. All right, one of the newer technologies that's out and a new term that I've become familiar with in at least the last couple months is telepresence. And I'm going to talk about what this is today and certainly where it's probably going to go in the future. And a good representation of telepresence technology is what's called the VGO robot. And this is essentially a robot that allows a person to be where they are not. That's just a simple term that I like to use to describe it. So there's some main ways that this I think will come to play in or for assistive technology. And really one of them is not necessarily assistive technology, but I think two of these three ways are, and I'll mention which one I don't think is. I think first and foremost, the VGO robot, which is essentially is a mobile robot on wheels that has a camera and a screen on it, as well as microphones. So this gives the ability to someone that's in another place via the internet to access the world through this robot wherever they are not. They will hear what's going on, they will see what's going on, and they can control the direction and turn and where it goes. Along with them being able to see, whoever interacts with the robot will be able to see and hear that person on the video screen. So it's a technological way for a person to interact somewhere that they are not. So one of the big ways that I see this working, and one of the main ways it's being marketed now, is for remote students. Students that may be homebound or able to attend a traditional classroom for any number of reasons, most notably possibly because of a medical condition or disability that precludes them from being able to go to that integrated classroom. They can access the school and the classroom from home by one of these robots. It's an alternative way to attend class and maybe even social activities. Now, is it a different type of access? Absolutely. Are they going to have the same experience as being in the classroom? Probably not. But as we all know with assistive technology, it allows things to happen in a much different way. So it is certainly representative of assistive technology in a way for a student to engage, be present, and be part of what's happening using this technology. Another way that I see it working, and the company sees it working, is through remote visiting. So this gives families with a loved one in, let's say, a care center or an assisted living environment, a way to connect and interact. A care center could have one of these robots. The family could log on and navigate to the person's room and be able to interact with them on some level through this robot. And of course, this would depend on the person's abilities, but it gives the person another way to interact with families and loved ones that may be a step above the phone or another way of talking through email or something like that that's far less personable. So a more one-on-one way to connect with loved ones through this type of technology. So it still meets the assistive technology definition there. So the last one that I see as important is patient monitoring. And this is probably a little less geared towards assistive technology, but it gives medical professionals, rehab staff, the ability to interact with patients and really perform care potentially remotely. And I've seen and heard some discussion of this in regards to rural environments that maybe do not have the staff on or available to provide highly skilled care. A doctor that was operating remotely could interact with staff in that rural facility and give them guidance on what to do, what not to do for, let's say, a very specific type of injury or a very severe injury that came in. So it's a way for medical professionals and rehab professionals to interact with rural environments. And I think hopefully there might be a lot of development in this technology for underserved rural communities where it's more difficult to get service professionals to go and be involved with those populations. All right, an extension to some degree of the VGO robot is the NAO humanoid robot. And once again, that's NAO or now humanoid robot. And this is technology, you'll see the picture there, essentially of the robot standing, is for children with autism, that it's mainly marketed for based on my understanding. And this is based on that children with autism appear to have a comfort level with technology that really lends it to maybe being a way to interact with them or to assist them in developing skills and independence. So they seem to interact more comfortably with the technology than with individual caregivers or rehab providers or therapists. So this kind of technology can be a bridge for therapists and rehab providers to make a connection, an educational or supportive connection with those individuals, all with the skill development in mind. So the connection and bridge based on their comfort and technology. And like I said, it can be used to teach and model connection, communication, and social skills for for children and young adults, and maybe even adults with autism. The robot itself, I know the picture doesn't do a good job of showing it, is 23 inches tall, so it's not life-size. It's very small and would be portable to some degree, and ability to go between classrooms or different educational environments pretty easy. The robot walks and talks, sings and dances. It can be programmed fairly straightforward with lessons and things that it would need to interact with the child or children with. It uses facial and vocal recognition via 2 cameras and 4 mics. So it will use the feedback it gets from the child in order to plan responses or what it says and what it does with the student. Also, it will provide positive feedback and response to the learner. What it's seeing, what it's getting back will help it engage more with that child. So actually very exciting technology. I highly recommend taking a look at some online stuff for it. It is manufactured by, I believe, a company called Alderian, which I believe is in the UK, but here in the United States, it's retailed and supported through a company called Westminster Tech, and their website is down there if you'd like to take a look at it and get some more information on it as a solution or option for persons with disabilities. All right, the Neo Into Smart Pen. This is actually a new variation of a very popular assistive technology device that's already out there, the LiveScribe Smart Pen. And I'm sharing this because it's really an involvement and really a competitor to a very popular device, this LiveScribe Smart Pen. It's got a lot of the similar features, but it's a new evolution of it, and will not only be a competitive to the LiveScribe, but we will begin seeing it in classrooms, both in high school probably and post-secondary classrooms fairly quickly. So I wanted to include it because since it's based on popular technology, I'm anticipating it will become popular as well. It, like the LiveScribe Smart Pen, uses specialized paper to sync the pen and the recording. For those of you that are maybe not familiar with the LiveScribe pen, it's essentially a pen with a camera that syncs the handwriting with the audio recording. So the person at any point after a lecture can go back and listen to the point in time that they want to in the lecture, just based on tapping the paper or on the text that was written down. So they don't have to listen to the whole presentation again. This Into Smart Pen is iOS and Android, and it does allow the transference of handwriting to text, which is a huge component of this device. It syncs with Evernote, so any notes that are taken will wirelessly connect and be uploaded to the Evernote app for safekeeping. The mobile app allows for sharing of the files between persons, the ability to search. So if you're looking for a specific lecture on a topic, on a keyword, you can find that through a search capacity, which could be significant for those with notes with lots of pages looking for a specific thing. It has a dictionary built into it, search again, got that twice, and of course for playback of what the lecture was on. So again, a later variation of a very popular device, but I think we're going to be seeing this some more in academic environments in the coming months. All right, something that I've known about that's been on the radar for quite some time that I'm not sure is really taking off like I thought folks thought it would is gesture technology. Using our hands and arms to control or as an interface for some type of hardware. And I wanted to pull a device that is kind of representative of gesture technology. We've started to see gesture technology a little bit with TVs moving around, making selections to control a TV. But we haven't really seen it in the mainstream of assistive technology. In addition to TVs, we've also seen it for gaming, but again, it hasn't really made it into assistive technology. This one device called the MOOT is essentially really a touchless mouse. It's both for PC and Mac, and it allows a user to keep their hands on a traditional keyboard, whether it's a desktop keyboard or a laptop keyboard, and their eyes on the screen. I have a picture of it there. You can kind of see the control interface at the tip of the individual's finger. And essentially what this does is it tracks the fingertip, and you use your fingertip to then move the mouse around the screen and to make selections on the screen. So you don't have to move your hand back and forth across the keyboard to access a mouse, whether it's your left hand or your right hand or whichever hand you're using for the mouse. So this device works for left hand and right hand, and I'm not 100% sure of all the applications for assistive technology yet, but a couple that may be popular or it may assist with our ability to focus, because you can keep your eyes on the screen as opposed to having to go back and forth to access a mouse, or those with repetitive stress issues. So you can keep your hands in more of one place as opposed to having to move them and having to grip a mouse, which, unless it's an ergonomic mouse, can have issues as well. So there may be some benefits of this type of device, but I think the jury's still out a little bit. We'll have to see what happens with this type of gesture technology, certainly for computer access. And again, the website is there if you're interested in more information about it. All right. A new one that was out last fall, and this is really a newer take on kind of existing technology. Most of us, if you worked in the assistive technology field, are familiar with infrared head pointers for mouse control. And this is a cousin of it. This is called the Hewa Zona gyroscopic air mouse, and it's put out by a company or retail from a company called Zygo, which has been in the assistive technology industry for many years, and has a wide variety of products available for communication and computer access. The twist on this one is that it also allows for Android access, PC and Android device access. It is USB based, and essentially it uses a 3D gyroscope to detect the movement as opposed to any type of infrared beam. So a little bit different technology here driving the access. You're not looking for that beam any longer, or the ability to get tracking on that beam. You're using the movement of the head or the movement of whatever body part this is on to control the mouse. And it can really be positioned anywhere, on eyewear, on the head, anywhere that the person has purposeful control and movement on, you can potentially use this device. And of course, like most of the other devices of this genre or in this family, it is switch adapted for the mouse click, so you can use an external mobility switch to do these operations. It transmits to the computer or the Android device via a radio frequency link. So again, probably a little bit more reliable connection through radio frequency than through an infrared connection. And a nice feature of this is it gives the user the ability to do internal calibration settings to control it as opposed through the Windows operating system. So hopefully you'll get a little bit better control and access by this style device. So relatively new. I haven't had any user feedback on this, but I'm interested to see how people like it as a computer and as an Android control device. The URL for this device was pretty long, so I created a tiny URL and put it down below. Hopefully that will be a little bit more manageable. All right. I needed to include at least one iOS option or device in this presentation since it is very popular. The iPhone and the iPad are great devices, but I always say they are not the end-all and be-all of assistive technology, and I like to make sure that people understand that. They are just a voice in the chorus of what's available. But I did want to include one of the newest access features for the iPhone and the iPad that just came out when they released iOS 8 2 or 3 months ago, and I haven't seen it get a lot of exposure. I'm not sure why, but I wanted to be sure to include it today, so it did get a little bit more exposure because I think it has some applicability across persons from a UDL standpoint and from maybe learning disability standpoint and an intellectual disability standpoint. In the past, there's a whole host of apps out there that give the ability to read text based on highlighting it and cutting it and pasting it. That is technology that's there and is used quite frequently. Speak Screen on the iPad and the iPhone gives the ability, when engaged, for the user to read the entire screen by doing a downward swipe with 2 fingers. And essentially what this does is activate the feature and Siri begins reading with whatever text is on the screen, and it will continue reading until the person stops it. You can access this settings under General, Accessibility, and then Speech. When the feature is in operation, the user interface that you see a picture of there on your screen will actually retract. So it will become smaller so that it does not display or block the display of what's being read on the screen. Because as you know, an iPhone, the screen doesn't have a lot of real estate. So whatever's up would potentially block what is there. So that's a nice access feature. Through the control interface, you can start and stop. You can slow down the speech. You can speed up the speech during playback and during reading. I'd also like to note that as it's being read, the app or the accessibility feature will highlight what's being read. It doesn't seem to keep pace really well with the speech, but it's still making an attempt to highlight as it reads along. You can go backwards and forwards by sentences. I find this option is great for emails, ebooks, and websites. I'll often use it. I send the text of my emails to it and then just have them read and listen to them. You can open this feature by voice once it's engaged by activating Siri and saying Speak Screen, and it will automatically start reading what's on the screen. So a nice twist on potentially voiceover when voiceover isn't appropriate as an auditory output option, a way to have all the text read on the screen. And when I say all the text, it does read all the text that is available on the screen and will continue to read until it stops or runs out of text. So again, the tiny URL is there if you want to get some more information from Apple on this feature. But it's fairly easy to activate and start using right away, right under the accessibility settings under General and Speech. All you need to do is turn Speak Screen on and you can have it available to use, either by voice or 2-finger swipe down. All right, finally, one of the devices I'd like to talk about is the LiftWhere trimmer spoon. And this came out last fall, and I haven't seen it really take off. And essentially, this is a spoon that's designed for persons with essential tremors, Parkinson's, and other motion disorders. It works best for mild to moderate tremors, and essentially how it works is sensors detect unwanted hand motion like tremors, and it uses 2 motors to move the spoon in opposite ways to help stabilize the spoon, so it's working against the tremor. The company reports that users will experience up to 70% less spillage of food when eating as opposed to using a more traditional spoon. And of course, it comes with multiple attachments: fork, soup, and regular spoon. And it is rechargeable. So a good option to explore with folks that experience tremors and have difficulty with eating. I see a lot of folks that prefer just to lift the plate or the spoon up closer to their mouth, but in restaurant situations or other areas that may not be appropriate to do. So this is something that's highly transportable and portable and can be taken with folks out into the community and used and recharged as needed. All right, a new development that in some regards isn't that new, but is certainly has a lot of potential. It's what's called the Assistive Technology Aware Toolkit. And I'm really going to explain what this is. And this was an option that was developed for Stephen Hawking, who's arguably the most recognizable AAC user in the world. Who's been an AAC user. I'm sure most of you are familiar with him for a lot of years, who's used assistive technology to communicate and to continue to advance in his field and profession. This was a project that was sponsored or run through Intel, who's been a major supporter of him and at least some of his hardware over the last 20 or plus years. And some of us may know, some of you may not know, there's been very little progression or changes in Dr. Hawking's assistive technology in 20 plus years. And a lot of this is because of his choice, which is beyond the scope of my presentation today, but he's preferred to keep things as they are. So he hasn't made a lot of changes in regards to what he's used. In the past, he's traditionally used an IR switch that detects chin muscle movements, and this has allowed him to access and control and make selections on his communication device. Now, any of us that are in the field know that speed and accuracy of accessing and making selections in a communication device is one of the major challenges. How do people keep up with a conversation? How do they get what they want to say out quickly enough? And that was something that Dr. Hawking has always struggled with in the past. This ACAT system is helping to address that, and I'm going to explain how. This setup, at the end of the day, was developed for Dr. Hawking, and it really just incorporates word prediction into his access method, which word prediction for most of us is not new technology. It's here, it's been here, and we're using it every single day. Dr. Hawking isn't using a word prediction program called SwiftKey, which I believe is primarily UK-based, of course, but it has allowed him to improve his access. The most notable feature of this setup, above and beyond word prediction, which been there, done that, is an interface that allows Windows programs to communicate and work together in a more efficient way. So this is an example of interoperability that we touched on earlier. Technology talking to technology, which Dr. Hawking needs to do a lot of. The nice thing about this development is Intel is releasing it open source January of this year, or this month. And there's not a lot out there about it, what this is really going to mean yet, but I'm hoping that this will result in some new technological advances, particularly for folks with physical motor issues, but progressive motor neuron conditions that will allow them to improve their access and ability to navigate PC and really hopefully Mac computer systems. So this is still kind of out there. We'll have to see what happens with it in the future. It may take 6 months or a year for new technologies to come out. We'll just have to see what happens. But it'll be interesting to see what comes from and what's being developed from this technology that was really designed for Dr. Hawking in his work at the end of the day. But it's certainly a new initiative that's out there. One of the things that I wanted to touch on today are a couple of initiatives and things that are going on. It seems like a lot of new development initiative-wise and thought about assistive technology happens in the UK. So these next couple of things are UK-based. I like to share them with you because it gets our thought process going for what's potentially capable out there in regards to technology. This Cloud for All initiative uses a community infrastructure and is really about using the cloud, which we're going to talk about, for accessing mainstream devices, things like ATM machines, ticket booths, etc. It gives the user the ability to use RFID or radio frequency technology. When they come up to a device, they could have on something like an RFID ring. That ring would activate their control setup for that device. The device would then switch to their preferences and their needs, and they could access it. Users can save and access and modify their own needs across devices as needed. So the RFID technology to connect and upload and configure user device preferences and interaction. So I think it's a really interesting concept. There's some controversial aspects to it potentially, but the ability to interact and to customize technology based on users across platforms. So of course the infrastructure component of this is huge. The interoperability component of this is huge, and the ability to get buy-in across society's infrastructure would be huge. But it's very thought-provoking and interesting, and there's some work going on to put this in place with some AT retailers right now. The 3D Soundscape project I found really interesting. It's an initiative through, again in the UK, Future Cities, and initiative called the Catapult, or the Center for Urban Innovation, through their City Unlocked initiative. A lot of different names there, but essentially what they're doing here is putting together digital beacons throughout an urban area, and it's providing auditory descriptive information via the pictured 3D Soundscape device that I have there on the screen, which is essentially an over-the-ear technology that transmits the auditory information through bone conduction, and it's mainly designed for folks with visual impairments. So through these urban beacons, people with visual impairments would get navigational information or access information about where they're going or what's coming up or where they've been through this bone conduction wireless technology. Of course, it operates through Wi-Fi and Bluetooth access. The more beacons you have, the more information you can potentially provide. So it's essentially unlocking a city through sound. And I really think, how accomplishable this is through the beacon technology, but how challenging it could be to get all the beacons in place that someone would potentially need. But again, very thought-provoking technology on what the potential is out there for access and support. Finally, I wanted to talk a little bit about EEG Controlled Wheelchair project that's out there. And essentially, this is using brain waves. I've been involved with assistive technology for about 20 years, and I've always known about and heard about brainwave control technology. And there is some development out there, and there is some interfaces available for like computer control through brainwave technology. But I think the jury's still out on this technology. I don't see it coming to play as a really viable access method just yet. There's a lot of research going on, and this project through McMaster University in Ontario, Canada, which was a student design project, utilized this EEG real-time brain-computer interface, which uses machine algorithms to detect directional commands forward, left, right from scalp recordings, and use these to control a wheelchair. So, which could be a significant access method if it was reliable and safe. But I thought a really interesting type technology that is still being researched, that still is kind of out there in regards to being available. So having reviewed these devices, what does the future likely hold for assistive technology? What are we going to see in the coming months? Wearable technology. I think, again, the jury's still out on this. And I say wearable technology, things like Google Glass, the Android Watch, the Android Pebble Watch, Apple's Watch, the Fitbit genre devices. The jury's still out, particularly in regards to Google Glass. And I think the question is, at least for me, are these devices going to have more interest for the general mainstream population, or are they going to be better suited for specific disability applications? And I use the example of Google Glass for persons that are deaf in regards to receiving interpreter information, or persons with intellectual disabilities, being able to get task-specific instructions via the glass screen or something like that. So I'm not sure where we're going to stand with wearable technology in the future. It may only really come to play if the mainstream population doesn't pick it up for specific disability applications. We may or may not see it. We're just going to have to watch and see how it takes off in the more mainstream community. Certainly AT in the cloud is going to be in the future. That should come as a surprise to nobody. The cloud and virtualization of assistive technology, and really software as a service. We're going to be accessing things through a web-based connection on a desktop or cloud type platform. And we're already seeing this a little bit for screen reader technology like JAWS, and some speech generating devices are starting to take on facets of this style technology. So we're going to be doing more on the cloud in the future, I think, whether we like it or not. Proximity and gesture movement technology, pointing to select, motioning things away, gaze to select is kind of already out there. I think we're going to be seeing a little bit more of this. We're already seeing it with TVs. I had the product today on computer access. So I think we're going to start seeing more proximity and gesture and movement technology to access and make selections on devices or on hardware. Certainly in the future, we're going to see more mobile and portable technology. We're already seeing that now. That should come as a surprise to nobody. Technology needs to go with the person. We want to be able to take it with us or to the area of need. I think people are already coming to expect that, and assistive technology manufacturers and retailers are going to need to address that in the future because people are already demanding it. So a new term that I became familiar with in my research for this presentation is the Internet of Things, which is essentially the idea of putting Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and interconnectedness into everything in your world. Locks, faucets, windows, heaters, essentially the ability to control your world via your smartphone and your mobile device by the internet. So everything will be controllable through your mobile platform, your hardware device. It's the Internet of Things. Internet being in everything, or IoT, I saw it referred to. So if you don't remember anything else from my presentation today, remember the Internet of Things. I think we're going to see more of that in the future. Next, telepresence technology being where we are not. Being able to go places and interact with things through these types of robots or other hardware infrastructure. So future challenges to consideration address, I'm just going to touch briefly on these. Interoperability, getting technology that cooperates with each other, getting everybody together on one platform is going to be challenging. I think we're going to see some funder pushback as devices become more capable. We've always seen that in regards to speech generating devices and them being full Windows computer systems. Most notably, the 2014 Medicare changes to the funding of speech generating devices, I think, was a reflection of that. So funder pushback, I think, is going to be something we're going to have to really grapple with in the future in regards to these more capable devices. Broadband and high-speed internet access and availability, especially for rural environments. We're really going to have a lot more capable internet for these platforms to be accessed everywhere and anywhere, particularly in these more rural environments where people just don't have that type of infrastructure. We're also going to need to see training and reliable support on AT for end users without any doubt. I see this as a big breakdown. People just don't have enough either family or informal unpaid support out there to use these technologies. When they break down, they stay broken down because folks just have a harder time getting back up and running with them, or the support to get them back up and running with them. The rate of technology change and advancement. Any of us in the field know this is significant. We get a device and companies move on with newer devices fairly quickly. So, and I'm a big believer, and I say often that, you know, when you include more capability, features, and devices in a piece of hardware and you don't consider accessibility, that device becomes less accessible to whoever has a disability and needs to use it. So you build in disabilities sometimes into more capable devices. So I think we always need to keep that in mind, that more capability doesn't make it more accessible. And I see this especially from mainstream devices and, for lack of a better term, disability dedicated genre devices as well. All right, I am right at about 5 minutes left. I wanted to leave a little bit of time for questions and discussions. We've kind of rocked through this entire presentation. I do have the reference there for the article that I mentioned initially, which I'll leave up. And I do have my contact information on the final slide of my presentation, which you can jot down whatever you'd like. I'd like to thank you for participating today. Please go ahead and type any questions that you have in the chat window, and I will address them as I'm able. When you registered for the presentation, if you wanted CEUs, you should have put in your contact information or email address. Those will be sent out to you. If you did not, please go ahead and type in your email address into the chat window, and we'll collect those and we will get your CEUs out to you. Outside of that, I will turn it over to questions right now. John, my supporter in this webinar, has put up a link to the SurveyMonkey for today's presentation. I'd really encourage you to go to that really quickly when we're all done and access the survey and answer those questions, provide that information so we get feedback on what you liked, what you didn't like in regards to today's presentation. I do have one question up, about 2 or 3 minutes. Have you tried the Neo Smart Pen? No, I have not. It is so new. We have not gotten it. I have not even gotten a request for it yet. So I would be very interested to get a request. I'd be glad to consider getting it. At AzTAP, we base a lot of our equipment purchases on people's requests, what people are asking for. So if you are interested in it, please ask for it, and we will make every effort to get it or get one to have available for folks to try or to come in and try for demo. So other questions, please go ahead and throw them out there so we can use the last couple of minutes. No more questions. I will go back to that link for the article, Unleashing the Power of Assistive Technology. You can jot that down, great. If you'd like, you can go ahead and click on it and open up the window. You should be able to access it that way. If you want to take a look at that or print it out or save it for future reference. And I'll go back to my contact information. Feel free to jot that down. AzTAP.org is our website there. Again, you can link on that, connect to our website. You can take a look at AzTAP programs and services and become more familiar with us. Getting word that oh my, there's an issue with that link. All right, yeah, I'm sorry. There appears to be a link issue with that. I'm not quite sure what it is. Let me try to get it again. Yeah, I think it's because it's got the HTTP in front of it. Possibly try removing the HTTP and the colon and the backslash. Hopefully it will work then. It looks like John may have put it up. Let's see. Looks like this one may work. Thank you, John, for saving me. That is it. John, my friend, has saved me. Thank you very much. Other than that, we are at 4 o'clock. I'd like to be respectful of anyone's time. If there is any more questions, please email me directly. We'll get a copy of the PowerPoint. I'd be glad to make that available to you if you'd like to send me an email. That is no problem. Looks like John is going to put it up on the screen as well. A PDF copy of the PowerPoint, so you can access it that way. Great, thanks for the feedback, Cheryl. I appreciate it. Otherwise than that, it doesn't look like there's any other questions. I thank you for your attendance and participation today.